about this Karabakh conflict. Now, foreign ministers from both Azerbaijan and Armenia are to visit Washington, D.C. on Friday. What do you expect from that, from the meeting, and are you ready for a trilateral talk with some conditions?
Actually, as you know, United States, Russia and France are three co-chairs of the OSCE Minsk group, which has a mandate to facilitate, to find a solution of the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Therefore, it's natural that our ministers meet in these three capitals. These kind of meetings happened before, many times. And you know that they've been also visit in Moscow and meeting in Moscow. So it's a continuation of the discussions on the peaceful settlement of the conflict. Of course, now situation on the ground have changed. The status quo no longer exists. The line of contact also does not exist. Therefore, of course, I think that now Armenian leadership must be more reasonable and to commit itself to liberation of the occupied territories. So our main objective at these discussions will be to find out whether Armenian leadership is ready to liberate our territories or not, and if ready, then when.
Are you also invited to Moscow by President Putin?
No.
Oh, okay. If invited, are you ready to go?
I've been many times invited by President Putin, and I visited Moscow many times, sometimes even some years, even several times a year. Therefore, it's obvious between partner countries and neighbors, these high-level contacts are common. And President Putin also visited Azerbaijan many times.
If there is any progress on Friday between the ministers, is it possible to have a trilateral meeting in Moscow with Armenian Prime Minister also joining?
Well, of course it's possible, because these kind of meetings happened before. It depends on what will be the agenda if this kind of meeting is going to take place. Because with this Armenian government, unfortunately, the prospects for peaceful settlement are very remote, because very counterproductive and provocative statements and actions on behalf of Armenian leadership made actual negotiations senseless, because the main topic on negotiation table always has been liberation of the occupied territories of Azerbaijan in accordance with the UN Security Council resolutions. And when Armenian Prime Minister declares that Karabakh is Armenia, and when he declares that Azerbaijan must negotiate with Nagorno-Karabakh so-called authorities, and when he orders a ballistic missile strike on a peaceful city of Ganja and daily attacks on other cities of Azerbaijan, there is not much room for negotiations. Therefore, we had to prove Armenian government that they cannot afford any longer to make these aggressive steps without any punishment. We are punishing them on the ground. We are liberating our territories. Every day almost I announce new cities and villages which have been liberated from Armenian occupation. Armenia is suffering very bitter defeat on the battlefield. Therefore, of course, they must be more reasonable. And definitely the matter of liberation of the territories is happening. We wanted to achieve it through peaceful talks, but due to Armenian unconstructive position and provocative steps, it was not possible. Therefore, we are now liberating our territories on the battlefield.
Would you say the second ceasefire has already failed or ended? And would you say the battles are still going on? Well, what there are?
Second attempts to achieve ceasefire failed because 2 minutes after the time when ceasefire had to be efficient, they violated the ceasefire. They again attacked our peaceful cities. This morning, from 6 a.m. up until 8 a.m. They launched more than 100 times their shells on peaceful city of Terter, which suffered mostly. And they attacked our military position. They wanted to regain the territories which have already been liberated. As you know, after the first attempt of ceasefire, in less than 24 hours, they attacked from the territory of Armenia with ballistic missile, second largest city of Azerbaijan, Ganja, which is a war crime, and the Armenian government will be responsible for that. So they violate ceasefire. I always said that ceasefire cannot be achieved unilaterally. If we are attacked, we must not only defend ourselves, but also launch counterattack. And I can tell you, after they violated ceasefire second time, we liberated the city of Zangilan and many villages. So the more time passes on the battlefield, the more territories we liberate. Therefore, Armenian government should think seriously about their behavior and make a strong commitment if they want the ceasefire to be efficient. First, not to violate it. Second, not to attempt to regain the territories which we already liberated, and make a commitment about liberation of occupied territories of Azerbaijan.
The ceasefires so far had been for humanitarian purposes, including exchange of captives and bodies. But so, do you think that means, ceasefire? Maybe there will be another one, but it will be over once exchange of captives are done.
So would it be a substantial ceasefire that will hold, or is it just a permanent, temporary one? Well, if there is any.
Yeah, it was announced on humanitarian grounds, and also, as you know, in Moscow Declaration, there was a reference to substantive negotiations and to the fact that the format of negotiations is unchanged, which means that there'll be no more attempts from Armenian side to try to integrate so-called Nagorno-Karabakh authorities on negotiation table. This was rejected by us and by the Minsk group. Therefore, of course, if Armenia commits to negotiations and with a strong commitment to liberate the territories, which they so far did not announce, then this ceasefire will be long-term, because we want to resolve this problem peacefully. But if they will try to use ceasefire in order to mobilize their resources, in order to get additional foreign military assistance and to launch a new attack on us, of course, this ceasefire will not last long. It depends on them.
So, would you, in order to get on the table of negotiations, would you demand Armenia to agree to withdraw, at least from some of maybe the 7 rounds, in advance, before any negotiations?
They must make a strong commitment that they will liberate these territories, because this is a part of the basic principles which have been agreed between 2 countries with the facilitation of the Minsk group. And basic principles say that occupied territories must be returned to Azerbaijan, and our refugees and internally displaced persons must return to all the occupied territories, including territory of Nagorno-Karabakh and including territory of ancient Azerbaijani city of Shusha. Therefore, Armenian government must clearly declare that they are committed to these principles, they will liberate these territories, and then, of course, negotiations will start. We do not put a precondition now that territories must be liberated first and then negotiations started. We, at this moment, demand from Armenian side, from Prime Minister personally, the person who is responsible for this violence and is responsible for war crimes against peaceful Azerbaijanis, we demand from him personally saying Armenia will liberate occupied territories. After that, of course, it will be transformed resolution of the conflict from the battlefield to the negotiation table.
Would you be ready for a negotiation? Maybe if Armenia says they are ready to withdraw or liberate, say like 5 regions first.
All the regions of Azerbaijan must be liberated, all of them. Of course, we can talk about the timing. And in the basic principles, there were certain ideas about timing, on which stage the first regions, on which stage the second part of the regions. So this can be discussed, but it's obvious that all the occupied territories must be returned, and all
Azerbaijan to be announced before.
And all Azerbaijanis must return to their ancient lands.
What do you say to Russia's proposal of sending monitoring teams, or what about international monitors?
International monitors or peacekeeping forces is part of the basic principles, but it's the last part, one of the last issues which have to be addressed, and definitely both sides, Azerbaijan and Armenia, should agree on who will be those international observers or peacekeepers. Therefore, we did not seriously discuss this issue in the framework of negotiations. I think that Minsk Group co-chairs, 3 countries, will definitely make proposal on their behalf about what composition, the number of so-called observers, when and where they are going to be deployed, because it's also important from technical point of view, because now it's an active phase of combat operations where these observers or peacekeepers will be deployed. Their life can be under risk, and what will be their mandate, who will give the mandate to them. And it's clear that when we talk about that, we talk about the territory of Azerbaijan. It's not territory of Armenia. Therefore, of course, we must have a decisive say about that. Therefore, of course, all these issues must be addressed. In principle, we are not rejecting it, but of course, we will put our conditions when time will come.
Speaking of Minsk Group, Turkey criticizes Minsk Group as brain dead. Would you agree?
I said recently that Minsk Group did not produce any result for 30 years. At the same time, I said that Minsk Group, with the facilitation of the Minsk Group, with the previous Armenian governments, we managed to make progress. Not a big progress, but still progress. But if one group of countries for 30 years cannot produce results, it speaks for itself. And also, the co-chairs of the Minsk Group are permanent members of UN Security Council. And UN Security Council, with participation of these countries and with the voting of these countries, adopted 4 resolutions demanding complete and unconditional withdrawal of Armenian troops from Azerbaijani territories. It's a question why these resolutions are not implemented, because Minsk Group co-chairs and permanent members are the same countries. So it's an open question.
Among the Minsk co-chairs, what would you say to Russia? What would you say to Russia's role as a mediator, leading mediator? And would you say Russia has been fair?
3 co-chairs of the Minsk Group have same rights and same mandate. Therefore, as far as I know, among these countries, they did not choose a leader. They're all equal. And we look at them as mediators. And if any country assumes the role of mediator, this country must be neutral. And if it's not neutral, it cannot be mediator. And the level of neutrality is another question. which of course will be addressed at the proper time. But I think the Minsk Group co-chairs will play their role, especially now when Armenia is almost defeated on the battlefield. And in order to stop violence and in order to implement the mandate, which was for 28 years is not implemented.
Do you want Turkey to have more say in the Caucasus affairs and be much more active in this negotiation process?
It depends, of course, on the political agenda of Turkey. I cannot speak on behalf of Turkey. What I want to say is that, of course, we always strongly support Turkish active involvement in the regional issues, and actually this involvement is obvious. And Turkey plays an important role now, not only in our region, not only in the Caucasus, but in the broader region and in the world. It is a reality, and it is very good reality for us, because for us Turkey is a brotherly country, our closest ally and friend. And de facto, Turkey is already involved, of course, from legal point of view also, as a member of Minsk Group. And I said once in one of the interviews that Turkey could have been even a co-chair. If today we would have been selecting the co-chairs, definitely Azerbaijan would have supported the Turkish candidacy, and I'm sure Turkey would have insisted on being a co-chair. In 1992, unfortunately, it didn't happen. So this is legal part. And then practical part, as you know, presidents of Turkey and Russia, their foreign ministers, defense ministers, they talk, they meet, they discuss this issue. Therefore, if somebody says that Turkey should not be there, as Armenia says, it's none of Armenian business. Turkey is already there and must be involved, and because it will bring stability. And also, Turkey, I think, is the only country which has a border with 3 Caucasian countries. No other country has a border with 3 of them. So then, of course, Turkey must be actively involved. Turkey is involved, and we strongly support it.
Karabakh is, by international Azerbaijan's territory, but at the same time there are many Armenian inhabitants, and would you, can you guarantee, once Azerbaijan gets back its control, Armenian inhabitants can live safely with equal rights?
Yes, definitely. And I already many times during this active phase of the conflict made statements on that those Armenians who live in Nagorno-Karabakh are our citizens, and their security, their rights will be totally provided, as long as with the rights of all other people of Azerbaijan. And I can tell you that today in Azerbaijan we have thousands of people of Armenian origin, unlike Armenia, where there is no Azerbaijanis, and 99% of Armenia are ethnic Armenians. So no national minority can live and can survive there. So they expelled all the nationalities which used to live on the territory of today's Armenian Republic. The biggest community were Azerbaijanis. In the beginning of 20th century, the city of Yerevan was 70% inhabited by Azerbaijanis. They destroyed all our historical religious monuments. They destroyed the traces of Azerbaijani culture, not only in Yerevan, but also in many other regions of today's Armenia. And by the way, Azerbaijani Democratic Republic, which was established in May 28, 1918, on the May 29th, decided, unfortunately, that was a big mistake, and which cannot be justified, decided to give Yerevan to Armenia as a capital. So they destroyed all our religious and cultural heritage. They destroyed our mosques, they destroyed our monuments. But here in the center of Baku, there is Armenian church with many Armenian books. And many Armenians, thousands of them, live today in Baku and in other parts of Azerbaijan. With respect to the point that you said that the many Armenians who live there, according to our information, the real population of territory which is occupied, including former Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous District, is around 65,000 people. It's not a big community. But before the war in the beginning of 90s, there have been more than 40,000 Azerbaijanis who lived in Nagorno-Karabakh, mainly in Shusha, but also in Khankandi, in Khojaly, the city which suffered Armenian genocide committed by Armenians, and many other cities. So they committed ethnic cleansing against us. We never did it. And even during these clashes, we did not respond the same way. We did not attack with ballistic missiles, neither territory of Nagorno-Karabakh nor territory of Armenia. And I said that we will take revenge, but we will take revenge on the battlefield. So Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh can be absolutely sure that their security will be provided. And as Azerbaijani citizens, after the criminal junta in Nagorno-Karabakh is thrown away, they will live better. They will live in dignity, they will live in peace, and we will provide all the social and economic advantages for them, as we do for any other people in our country.
When you get back Nagorno-Karabakh, would you respect their rights of self-determination as stated in Madrid principles, and would you agree to a referendum?
No, of course not. There will be no referendum in Nagorno-Karabakh. We will never agree on that. We did not agree on that during the time of negotiations, and now when we regained a big part of the territory, it is out of question. With respect to self-determination, Armenian people already self-determinated themselves. They have independent Armenian state. Imagine what will happen if Armenians will self-determinate themselves anywhere where they live. How many small Armenians will be in the world? This is a counterproductive approach. Self-determination is an important factor of international law, but it should not violate territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. There are different types of self-determination. There are different types of communities, and there could be cultural autonomy, for instance. And we see these examples in developed countries of Europe, where there are certain rights of people in their municipalities, in their communities. So, as in any part of Azerbaijan, of course, Armenians who live in Azerbaijan can have this form of communication, but never we will allow creation of the second Armenian state on the territory of Azerbaijan. This is out of question. In other words, there will be no referendum, never.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the battlefields, well, reportedly there are Armenia is recruiting Lebanese, Syrian, Armenians, and at the same time, NGO, namely Syrian Observatory of Human Rights, claims that many ethnic Turkmen fighters from Syria are now on the battlefield alongside with your forces. Would you say that is true?
No, this is not true. First, I'd like to say that the fact that Armenia recruited mercenaries and fighters from Middle East is not a secret, and even Armenian Prime Minister admitted it. But he said that they're native Armenians. First, nobody knows whether they're native Armenians or not, and we have information that representatives of different nationalities are now fighting on Armenian side. And second, if the person is ethnic Armenian but citizen of other country, does not mean that he is not a mercenary. Among those who have been eliminated on the battlefield, there are people with Lebanese passport, with Canadian passport. We have evidence about citizens of France, United States, of Armenian origin, yeah, but citizens of these countries, and citizens of some countries of former Soviet Union are fighting against us, together with citizens of the countries of the Middle East. Armenia used mercenaries during the first Karabakh war. This is not a secret. Some of them have been eliminated by Azerbaijan, and they erased the big monuments in their honor, the monuments in the honor of international terrorists. This shows that Armenia is a terrorist state. With respect to Azerbaijan, first, this so-called Syrian Observatory NGO is not a credible organization. We know about many fakes which they spread over with respect to the war in Syria. So there is no credibility to this and trust to this politically motivated so-called NGO. First, we need to check who is financing and then understand who is behind these rumors. Second, not a single evidence have been presented to us by any country. Only rumors, only unjustified statements, and I demanded proof. I said, okay, now it's more than 20 days that we are in the active phase of the conflict. Where are the proofs? Give us the proofs. No proofs. Therefore, these rumors must be stopped. Azerbaijan is fighting itself. We don't need any foreign fighters. We have enough people, enough soldiers and officers in our regular army. We have a 10 million population. If we need additional fighters, we will announce mobilization, we will recruit. So there's no need for that, and it is absolutely false information.
So, as you said, repeatedly, no jihadis and even no Turkmen.
No.
Okay.
They can be people from Azerbaijani origin coming from other countries. We do not exclude it because we have many volunteers, people who voluntarily, want to defend their country. We cannot exclude that Azerbaijani origin, people of Azerbaijani origin from other countries come, but it is not the way how it is presented, that Azerbaijan invited terrorists in order to fight. This is false information.
Are you aware of those volunteers with Azerbaijani origins?
They can be, I said. I do not exclude. They can be.
Okay.
But we receive many requests and many letters from Azerbaijanis who live outside to come and to fight for their historical motherland. But our position is we don't need it. We have enough people on the battlefield.
Japanese companies joined the oil and pipeline projects of Azerbaijan. They're investors here. Do you have concerns over the security of the pipelines? And is there any risk of postponement of the TAP pipeline, which is going to be opened very soon within this year?
No, with TAP pipeline, everything is on the schedule. It is already done. It's a matter of maybe some additional weeks, not months, for official opening of TAP. Everything is ready at pipeline. It's a historical pipeline from Baku to Europe has been completed. With respect to other pipelines which we have, and particular oil and gas pipelines on the territory of Azerbaijan during all these years since 2006, when Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan was commissioned, we didn't have any accident. Our pipelines on our territory are duly protected. But of course, we heard threats from official Armenian representatives that they will attack our pipelines. They will attack Sangachal terminal, which is an important terminal for oil and gas transportation. But this is also part of their terrorist nature, because they openly declare that they will attack civilian infrastructure. And of course, if they do it, they will regret, because they will be punished by us severely. And also those countries which today provide part of the energy security from Azerbaijan. What will be the reaction of those countries? Billions of dollars have been invested in these pipelines. International banks, all the leading international banks like World Bank, EBRD, Asian Development Bank, European Investment Bank, and other banks invested. So the Armenian leadership should think twice about this kind of option. And of course, as I said, Azerbaijan itself will punish them severely, and I don't think that they will even dare to do this, another war crime.
Since it's a very rare occasion for us to meet you, let us ask a couple of questions about the future of the country in general.
Yes, of course.
Azerbaijan is the first commercial oil producer in the world.
Yes, that's true.
But how do you think the country will transfer to the post-oil era? And then, do you have any expectations from as to which how Japanese companies might be involved in that?
Yeah, of course, we have an agenda of diversification of our economy, and this process is successfully continuing. Even this year, though our GDP is going down, not very seriously, it's less than 4% decline so far. In comparison with some other countries, it's not a bad result. But with respect to non-oil related industry, we have a growth. That shows that our diversification program is being implemented very successfully. Industrial development, business opportunities, tourism, of course, before the pandemic was rapidly growing, and innovation sector, and agriculture. And of course, coming back to the main topic, when we see that now Azerbaijan is liberating the territories, first we liberated very important water storage, which will provide water supply for tens of thousands of hectares of land. Armenia actually committed ecological terror on us. They were closing the water from the river Terter, and thus 100,000 of hectares of land were not supplied with water. And they were closing in summer when people need it, and they were opening in winter and making floods. So the terrorist nature of Armenia is on every step. So after we regained the territories back, and this is a very good soil for growing different products, for growing cattle, of course our agriculture will have a new boost. We already started to plan our future agricultural development with respect of the liberation of the territories. And of course, we think that investments in human capital will provide for us good opportunities for development, because oil and gas will come to an end once. Though our reserves are huge, we just started to export large quantities of natural gas, and oil production profile will be more or less stable for coming decades. But the non-energy sector, of course, is priority. With respect to Japanese companies, they're very active here in the area of energy. With loans from Japanese banks, we built 2 big power stations in Baku. The capacity is close to 800 megawatts. So these power stations provide important part of our consumption and our export. We, by the way, export electric energy also. And we want to see Japanese companies in the area of renewable energy, which is now one of the priorities. We already signed preliminary agreements with some investors. So we hope that that area, which is very promising and has potential, because a lot of sun and a lot of winds, especially in Absheron Peninsula, And in many other areas, today Japanese companies provide equipment, machinery, technology, also in agriculture. So we are very satisfied with the level of economic cooperation between Japan and Azerbaijan.
What about political reforms? You have criticism. There are criticism from mainly Western countries that you yourself succeeded your father, and now your wife is vice president, and so are you ready to sort of like promote like a democracy and to open up power sharing to oppositions?
I think that the democratic development in the country is going in a positive direction. We have all the major freedoms in Azerbaijan: freedom of political activity, media freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, religious freedom. So there's no restrictions on that. We have free internet, by the way. And those who try to criticize us, they should look to the substance and not to spread rumors and use the so-called democratic shortcomings of Azerbaijan for political purposes, for the purposes of political pressure. Now I introduced a new program of political reforms, which was supported by absolute majority of all political parties. And that was done, by the way, before this clash. Now, of course, absolute majority of political parties strongly support my policy on return of the occupied territories. Only two parties are not part of this process. Only two parties are going against national interest of Azerbaijan. This is a Popular Front Party and Musavat Party. And by the way, these two parties, they rejected my proposal for political dialogue. I made this proposal several months ago. I said we need to have a political dialogue, we need to have normal civilized relations between government and opposition, between leading party and other parties. And now I think 50 parties or more supported that. We are in a very active phase of the political dialogue. Only two parties which have a direct financing from outside, which always were acting against national interests of Azerbaijan. These two parties are responsible for loss of the territories because they were in power in 92-93 when Armenia occupied our territories, Popular Front and Musavat. And those people who are responsible for loss of the territories today are leaders of these parties for almost 30 years. And nobody talks about democracy. Nobody talks about how they keep this position for 30 years, almost 30 years. Therefore, those who want to criticize us better look to the mirror. In front of our eyes, in front of the international community eyes, we see how demonstrations are brutally suppressed in so-called democracies, how people are being killed at the rallies, wounded, injured. Every week we see it, how police is using dogs and horses in order to suppress protesters. You will not see it in Azerbaijan, never. Therefore, those who criticize us better take care of their own business. With respect to what you said about me succeeding my father, yes, it is true. But before I succeeded my father, I was for many years member of parliament since 1995 until 2003. I was president of National Olympic Committee since 1997. I was a deputy and then senior deputy of the leading political party, Yeni Azerbaijan Party, and I was prime minister. So my political career is known to international observers, and of course they know that it was not like they want to present. And talking about succeeding, why nobody talks about Bush family, how they succeeded each other? Why nobody talks about Clinton family, when the wife became Secretary of State and then was a presidential candidate? And many other cases like that. Let them look at themselves before raising this issue. With respect to my wife was a member of parliament since 2005. She was very active on the issues related with social and humanitarian area. She was and is the head of the biggest in the Caucasus NGO, Haydar Aliyev Foundation. She has a strong support among Azerbaijanis. You can ask any person on the street and you will see how they love her and support her. And she was and is a deputy chairman of Yeni Azerbaijan Party. Therefore, her political career also was not a kind of sudden events. And I can tell you that she was not very happy when I suggested this position to her. I can tell you, maybe I tell it for the first time, it took me a lot of time to persuade her, and I have arguments, and she didn't want. She is totally involved in issues of social humanitarian, and she wants and she helps tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands. But she does it without any PR, without any advertisement, without announcement. So she's a person our people are proud of.
You mentioned, freedom of speech and internet, but why? But I believe there are some restrictions on social networking systems.
This is temporary restrictions. These restrictions have been imposed after these clashes have started, and we made an announcement to our people that this is for the issues of national security, because we need to protect at this time our information, system from Armenian provocations. So this is a temporary. As soon as this active phase of clashes will stop, all these restrictions will be lifted. But I can tell you that the level of penetration of internet is very high, and more than 80% of Azerbaijanis are internet users. So it is only temporary.
Let me close with one final question, Your Highness. Let's finish it with a hopeful note. Are you hopeful for a peaceful solution? And what will peace can bring Armenia and Azerbaijan also, because Armenia is landlocked, borders are closed here, borders are closed on Turkish side, yes. Their economy is on decline. What can peace can bring to both countries?
Yes, of course, peace will change situation in the region completely. And I hope to see the time when 3 countries of the Southern Caucasus will have cooperation. And now, for instance, level of cooperation between Azerbaijan and Georgia is very high. We are strategic partners. And with the current Georgian government, we have excellent relations. And we support each other, and we are good neighbors and good friends. And we implemented, look how many projects together. Oil transportation, gas transportation, electric energy transportation, railroad connection, Baku-Tbilisi-Kars, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum, Tanap, and many other. Azerbaijan is, I think, first or second largest investor in Georgia, along with Turkey. First or second largest taxpayer. And by the way, when in the middle of 90s, the issue of construction of pipeline was discussed, there were some proposals from the West to have this pipeline through Armenia. But Armenia should have then liberated the territories. And then the pipeline could have gone from Azerbaijan to Armenia, and then to Nakhchivan, and to Turkey. And that was the shortest route. So if you look at the map, you will see how the pipeline goes. It's because to bypass Armenia. But Armenians thought that we will not be able to implement this pipeline. Therefore, they said no. And I think now they seriously regret. They became deadlocked because of occupation. They thought that we will not be able to build pipelines. They thought we will not be able to build railroads. They were always advocating for functioning of the Kars-Gümri railroad, which existed, but it was closed because our brotherly country, Turkey, closed the border because of Armenian occupation. So now Armenia is not landlocked, but they don't have border with Turkey because of aggression against Azerbaijan and because of territorial claims against Turkey. Maybe you don't know, but in their constitution, they have territorial claims against Turkey. One must be crazy now to have a claim such a powerful country as Turkey. But that's their, substance of their ideology. And during the time of negotiations, there have been messages sent to previous Armenian government that if they put an end to occupation, Azerbaijan can implement different social and economic projects in Nagorno-Karabakh. These messages were sent through the Minsk Group co-chairs to previous Armenian president, and they rejected. Today in Nagorno-Karabakh, people live in poverty, total unemployment, poverty, and destroyed infrastructure. We were ready to invest, but we said, liberate the territories, and we will help you. Today, when we liberate the territories ourselves, definitely we will help those people, those Armenians who live in Nagorno-Karabakh, and of course Azerbaijanis who will return and to rebuild this area. But if Armenia makes constructive steps and liberates the territories, of course, we will open all the communications. I know that there is also, I heard about position of the Turkish government that they will also open communications if Armenia liberates the territories. Then the completely situation in the Southern Caucasus will change.
Has Mr. Erdogan mentioned you about this intention?
Maybe we did not discuss it directly, but of course we know that there's a position that the reason why Armenian-Turkish border is closed because of occupation. If occupation is lifted, the border will be opened. It is the official position of Turkish government, and Armenians know that. And without normalization of relations with Turkey and with Azerbaijan, Armenia has no future, because the market is small and is getting smaller, population is shrinking, migration is very high. According to our information today, real population, how many people are in Armenia, less than 2 million. Less than 2 million. And it will go down because no job, especially now when they are deprived from those very productive lands in the occupied territories. If you see these images from the sky, you will see how they use our land for illegal products. They not only use our land, they use our gold mines in Kelbecer. And there are foreign companies whom we will sue in court if they don't stop. By the way, soon I think they will stop anyway. So they will suffer even more problems because they will be deprived from this important agricultural segment, and they will just decline. And we will develop. Our population is growing. Turkish population is 83 million. Azerbaijan population is 10 million. Armenian population is less than 2 million. They should think how they're going to live here in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years, if they don't be reasonable, if they don't put end to aggression. And they cannot afford this aggression any longer. And we showed them on the battlefield who is who. All their mythology about their brave army was a kind of a fake. Their army is running. We defeat them, we beat them, and we will continue to do it until they get out of our land.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been always a pleasure to be in Baku.
Thank you.